Hello everyone, and welcome to Chapter 2 of Learn LEED. I'm Trey Hauk, and today we'll be going over getting around and staying in place. We're talking location and transportation. And this chapter really focuses on all the elements of where we're putting our site and how we're getting to it, what resources are available for us to get there. So starting off as an overview, transportation accounts for 33% of US greenhouse emissions. So it's very important that when we look at this, we are trying to find ways to reduce commutes and reduce the amount of cars on the road emitting that gas. So as an overview, we have location, transportation, site development, and then finally health and livability. Starting off with location. So with location intents, we're looking at the obviously location of a building, which can be crucial for sustainability because of how it's placed, how it's oriented to the sun, and even if you don't have a choice in where the building's located, say it's a pre-existing building or the owner just really wants it in this one spot, you can still get location and transportation credits to help for those who have no say in the building location. Now, what we mean by this is that we're trying to locate the project within either a LEED certified neighborhood development. That kind of ties back to one of the earlier building systems of LEED. We won't be focusing too much on it as this is largely for the build, design, construction portion. Or we're looking to locate the building within proximity of surrounding density and diverse uses. Essentially, we want to make sure that from the building you can get to everything that you need to. It's not, isolated far off in the middle of nowhere so that commute times are increased and we're having to spend more time and energy to get there. So with location, in getting to the location, we have to talk about transportation. And the intent with transportation is to reduce the number of people traveling alone in conventional automobiles, as each car is a emitter of those greenhouse gases, those emissions. And so if we have alternative methods of transportation, we can cut down on that dramatically. In addition to that, we're also just looking to reduce the travel distance and make it more efficient. So what we mean by this, our strategies, are to develop in areas that have multimodal transportation access within a half-mile or 800-meter walking distance. So that's buses, that's trains, trams, the Hyperloop, anything that reduces the amount of cars on the road is a multimodal transportation. This can be used in tandem with or as an exclusive thing to limiting parking and giving preferred treatment and charging stations to carpool and low emissions vehicles. Here in Utah, we have an example. They have a HOV lane that is basically a toll lane, but if your vehicle has 2 or more people in it, you get to ride in it for free, which is a nice little way to reward people for being a little more environmentally conscious. An example of this is what's kind of circulating in the UK, which is the concept of a 15-minute neighborhood, which essentially the idea is that you can get to everything you need within 15 minutes. That's housing, that's retail, that's public service facilities, education, parks and green spaces, and last but not least, sustainable mobility to connect it all. If you can get to it within 15 minutes, if you have everything you need to survive and thrive as a functioning member of society within that 15-minute zone, then you are doing great for sustainability. So from there, once we got our site picked and we have the methods of getting to it, we have to talk about how we're going to develop the site. And so what we're essentially looking for with site development intents is to prevent the encroachment of buildings into wildlife habitats. And by doing that, and through that, we want to repurpose old land that's been abandoned or neglected. We're not looking at tearing down new forest and new unoccupied land when there's already existing structures that can just be demolished to pave the way for new and actually usable buildings. Now, there's a couple strategies as for this, and we'll get into these a little bit more in a future chapter, but it's essentially divided into 4 types of field. You have your green field, which are the properties of minimal development. This includes your prime U.S. farmland. Then you have brown fields, which are unused industrial commercial facilities with potential for contamination. And then we have both gray fields and black fields, which are kind of little subcategories of the brown field. You have the gray field, which are obsolete buildings with no contamination and can be classified as a subset of a brown field. That's something like a abandoned mall, or essentially a building that doesn't have a negative environmental impact from its processes, but it's still an abandoned building. Then we have black fields, which are abandoned contaminated buildings, such as mines, wherein it's not just an abandoned building, but also due to the chemicals and the runoff of the processes of operating it that has kind of corrupted and polluted the land. And there's certain credits. Now, there's a couple strategies and credits associated with this, but again, we'll be getting into those later on. For now, the last part of this chapter of transportation and location is health and livability. And what we mean by that is essentially we want to promote a healthy lifestyle for all involved parties. We want to build in areas of walkability and that include resources for biking so that, again, the focus is on taking the commute away from just driving your car back and forth. Not only is it saving on emissions, but the hope is that it's also saving on your own health by burning calories and getting you some much needed exercise for the purpose of bodily functions and the continued health of the individual. At the end, I just want to propose a single question, and that is, how do location, transportation, and site all play a part in sustainability? This is a shorter chapter, but be prepared as future chapters will be much, much longer. I'm Trey Hauk, signing off.